Hello everyone and welcome to my stream. Thank you for I'm putting up with me. I'm a little bit late today and just a little bit running a tad behind. So I'm continuing on with my picture of Jean-Luc Picard, except it's not Picard. This is a picture of Sir Patrick Stewart, not as his character Picard, but just simply as Patrick Stewart. So I found a very good picture of, excuse me, I found a very good black and white reference of him, and I'm going to do it as not my usual style. So there's not sort of a lot of cross hatching in this one. This one's going to be a lot light-handed, a lot of a sort of lighter touch. And by that I mean that I'm not using a lot of pen and ink work in terms of, building up the tone using cross hatching and a lot of heavy lines. What I'm actually doing today with this one is I'm just using very small amount of line work here and there just to give the idea of the tone, and then there will be sort of a very faint, basically the tones are going to be built up of the watercolor wash. So the watercolor wash in this case is going to be black and white. I'm not using color. So I'm trying to get an idea of like tone and mood and that sort of thing. And I like this one in particular because this particular reference picture shows him more of a pensive, older viewpoint of him. So he's actually got more lines and things like that. I'm just going to move my camera up if it decides to behave itself. Hopefully that'll be fine. Okay, so yes, so that's basically what I'm doing here. And I'm using a very, very small amount of line work to actually kind of give it that form, but the rest of it is all going to be ink wash. So it's been a bit of a challenge for me, because in this particular case I'm going backwards in my art style. My art has sort of progressed beyond what I used to do with this style, and I'm now doing a lot of the illustrative with the cross hatching and the pen and ink work. So this is kind of, it's not a step back exactly, it's just kind of sliding sideways again, and there's it takes a bit of getting used to sort of bring yourself back from the style that you've become familiar with to something that you used to do and were familiar with, back to, old school style. But I'm going to try it with this one. I've got all my Copic, all my pens here, and there's only a few that I'm actually going to use, so I'm going to get rid of the big ones because I won't be using those. 0.8 can go, and the brush ones. The ones I will most likely use the most are the very fine ones. I've got a 0.03, 0.05, and 1. So those three mostly. And then possibly I might use a 3, but and then maybe a 5 if I want something really dark of line like in here. Now this is going to be a little bit tricky because he has a beard in this one, as you can gather, but all the lines that are there, and the beard is kind of, I have to kind of make it up, as sort of do it and make it up. So there is a kind of a shape and patterning and so on. Even within the beard there are tonal variations. So it could be that I'll do a bit of a little bit of the pen and ink and then do a bit of ink and wash just to get that those tonal variations. I will grab my sketchbook. I have a presentation display book that has pictures of all these this style that I used to do, and I'm looking back so that I have an idea of how I did it before I got a bit complicated with my technique. So I'm just going to flick past all the various images that I've got here and try and work out if I can go back to how I used to do it. It's quite tricky. Gotta find it first. There we go. So I've done a portrait of Ian McKellen in this style, and I want to kind of make it look similar to that. I haven't done a lot of pen and ink lines. I've done a few cross-hatching lines here and there. I've probably put a little bit too many in here so far, but I'm going to have to adjust my camera again. It keeps sliding down on me, so hopefully it's going to behave itself. It'll move, but that way I can move it down with closer to me rather than further away because my camera's not behaving. Okay, so I'm going back to, I'm going to ignore these lines too much, but I will put in a few. I'm using a 0.03, so that's actually my finest one, and I can't find a finer one than this, but I do want to kind of, you know, sort of utilize the shading only a little bit. So there's a lot of like stray hairs in here, and most of it, like I said, will be in ink wash, so I don't want to add too much line work in here. Maybe a bit, but not too much. And areas like this, where there is a line, creases and things like that, it's quite tricky because I do want to kind of add the tonal variations, but I'm trying not to get bogged down too much. Like I say, I'm very tempted to go in and do my usual style, but I'm trying not to do it. So what I will do is actually put thicker lines on where there are, you know, where there's fabric, like here, and that's fine. Do this in stages, and I might jump about a bit, so you'll have to excuse me if I do that. Jacket. Now, mustaches and beards and things like that are quite tricky, and I'm trying not to get bogged down too much with it. But it is quite difficult. I want to create a shadow in here, but I can use pen and ink wash for there. And I just use a couple of these lines just to make it, to emphasize where the darker areas are going to go. Very tricky because there is actually a shadow that goes down here, and I may have to put it in with pen and ink before I go over it with a pen. So for ink wash, I should say. Ink wash. Okay. A lot of these lines and tonal variations will actually come out when I put the pen and ink on, the actual wash, I mean. I'm doing the pen and ink part of it now, but I don't want to get too bogged down with too many fine details. Except I will anyway, because there are a lot of fine details. It's very short, stubbly hair along here. Ears are tricky. So the ear is going to be problematic. I'll spend some time on the ear. I'm going to move that down a bit. And all I'm going to do here is just put in the lines that are dark and then let the ink wash kind of form the edges. Although in this particular case, there is actually a harder, darker line along this outer edge. So I can actually put it in. And then there's a darker area. Very wispy hairs. And I know people are used to seeing him in a particular way, which is why the beard is probably throwing them out a bit. But it is actually a very nice photo. Just kind of a candid shot of him. And that's what attracted me to this particular photo in the first place. I liked the you know, the mood. The mood was just really good. Okay, I might get a thicker one. I don't often get the really big one, but I'm going to. These line a bit darker in here. Like that. Then he's got this area in here. I always like to look for shapes, so like that. I hope everyone is having a lovely day. It's a nice Sunday afternoon here, and I'm enjoying my stream. And I hope that I'll be able to get this done today, because that would be lovely. And then I can start on something else. Look for 0.05, and so I'll probably use that. Okay. Going to be a bit of ink and wash in there. So trying not to let's see, that goes like that. Ears are fun. It's very important to get the shapes right in the ears, otherwise the ear will look very strange and it will look disconnected. What are you using? It's too thin. There's a bit of cross hatching in here, but try not to overemphasize it too much because I want to pick it up later in pen and ink. Sorry, ink wash. I don't know why I keep saying pen and ink. Pen and ink is what I'm doing now. So, just confusing myself, that's all. More like sketching with this pen somewhat, because there is actually a line which I haven't put in, which is silly of me. Goes there and this. I've got to draw that in. Clever of me, very, very clever of me. So there is actually a bit that goes around here like that. So what have people been up to on this beautiful Sunday day? Had a very quiet day so far. It's not been bad. Hope everyone's doing something nice, family or other things. Right, let's just get some of this back in here. Just add a bit of... My family's just come back from an outing. Hex was driving, and it's going to get quite loud, I'd imagine, in a moment. So don't be surprised if I turn the mic off for a short while, just till the fuss noise and noise level has died down a bit. All right, let's just... Oh, this is weird. Just do this. And a little few hairs in here. Here we go. Here we go. There's his ear. Ear goes like that. This bit goes around in here like that. And there's a bit of a line. So, and then this is very dark, this area in here. So what I will do is just put this line in, a line in here, and I will just cross hatch in here. Hello. Hello. And then in here like so. Okay. A bit of the tonal variation in the ear will create the you know, the what do they call it, the shape. That's it. We'll create the shape once all the other lines are in. Now there's a bit that goes like this and then back around here, but that's going to be try not to make too much. There we go. Hello, Sonia. Sonia 2801. Hello to you. Thank you for popping onto my stream. It's always nice to see you. I hope you're having a lovely afternoon or morning or evening or whatever time it is for you. I hope you're having a good day. Trying to work out what I'm doing here. And this bit, kind of, it's got an odd sort of shaped ear. Ears are a bit strange, but let's see if I can do something with this. Sort of goes like this and then this way. Very strange. Very, very strange. Yeah, so ears are something that you kind of, each person's ears individual to them, unique to them. And I'm just going to add a bit of shading in here. Yeah, that's not too bad. I don't think I'm overworking it, so it should be all right. There's a bit of, a little bit here and a little bit dark areas in here, but hopefully not too bad. That'll give me at least a basis for working out where the shading's going to go. So I will just colour this bit in here round like that, and that goes in here like so. All right. This bit's darker, so there is actually a shape that goes here. Do that in here, and a shadow. So just do it a bit. All right. Now I'm not going to put too much work into this because there is an area in here which has to be darker, and in here also. It's where it joins the side of the head. That bit's dark. That bit is kind of like this, and this bit goes up. So maybe just do a little bit of the hair here. So if anybody's watching and sort of wonders, hair and beards, same sort of principle when you're doing them. They're actually very difficult to do, and you've got to be aware of the direction of the hairs, otherwise it'll look weird. And the ear has to look like it's part of the head, not just kind of plomped on the side. So that's why the ear, you always have to take a bit more care with the ears, even though they do look a bit strange, odd looking things. See, I don't mind that. I think that's quite good. But in here, I have to do a little bit of cross hatching. It's very warm. I've got the air conditioning on, but I'm not feeling it very much. Got a little fan that blows on the back of my head, but I'm not really feeling that much either. But I'm guessing it's a lot hotter outside. If I can feel it in here like this, then it's much hotter outside, sorry, than it is indoors. So, yeah.
I got what you're doing.
I'm doing Patrick Stewart's face. Doing a picture of his face. Nothing sus. Just gonna just do that.
Anyone watching?
Yes, I have 3 people. And Sonia is here. It's always nice to see Sonia. So there's this bit here is actually quite subtle because the hair is so sparse it's almost not there, so that it goes to bald. So it's very fine and wispy, and that's quite a difficult one to show. So trying to, it's actually a bit that goes like this, comes down. So ink and wash will actually pick up all that shading in here, and then there'll be minimal ink work that I can put in. So I might just do the basic lines here and then get my wash out and do that. Just going to give someone a quick hug. Hang on a moment. Sure, I don't turn off. It seemed like that. That's all you can see on me. There you go. You need a cup of coffee.
Is this I want a cup of coffee?
You can do it later. It's only 2:30. It's not really coffee time yet.
It's a headache.
Yeah. I'm just going to do this one. It's a little bit more detailed than that, but than my picture of Ian McKellen, but it's actually, it will still look very similar. It's more as an example.
Sorry, I'm chuckling because like all the people you've done more or less have blue eyes.
Yeah. And they do, except for, hang on. Yeah, they're not all of them have blue eyes.
No, but I mean,
because he's actually got, you can't see it, but
yeah,
it's
got a
actually
little bit of brown
and blue.
Blue.
Christopher Walken has.
Yeah, but it's still blue.
I know, most of them, it's not my fault that most actors have blue eyes. Is that my fault? He doesn't.
Yeah, but it's not done in the same.
No, but
same
I will probably be doing Jack Nicholson at some point in that style. So, and I think he's got brown eyes. Pretty sure he has the brown eyes. So
if you're talking about, is that the Here's Johnny guy?
Yeah. Here's Johnny.
Yeah, he's got brown eyes.
Yeah, well, there's a few pictures. See.
No, but in that style.
In that style, no, there's generally most people.
Style
what if you think about it? A lot of the majority of people have blue eyes.
Yeah.
Western people. No.
Because like dominant genetics.
It's actually
brown.
not. No, it's actually blue.
When I was in school, it was.
Yeah, well, genetics was wrong in school. All the things they thought has been disproven. So yes, there are genetics at school, but a lot of the things that we used to do in genetics, or what they used to think was correct, are now not. They've since been disproven. So yeah, it's kind of a, used to think that blue eyes were recessive and brown eyes were dominant gene, but it actually turns out that in certain societies that's not the case. So it depends on whether you're in Western society or whether you're elsewhere in the world, where obviously where there's an abundance of like depending on the culture. So if obviously you're in Japan or you know, some of the other non-Caucasian places, you're obviously going to not find the majority of eyes will be brown. But of course, as soon as you get into Western sort of European kind of places, they're nearly always, the dominant genetic is nearly always blue or shades of blue. So yeah, it's quite a fascinating thing. It's a very fascinating thing. I find it really fascinating. Genetics is one of those things that they keep kind of proving wrong. So, you know, you can't always tell. Once upon a time, they used to think it was correct. And of course, everything gets disproven the more you get into it. So, yeah. Now, he's got a lot of creases around here, but a lot of these are very fine creases. So, it's really difficult to put them in. And I'm going to put them in a very fine line. Like this.
You want one of these or a normal coffee?
I'll have a normal coffee. Thank you. So, yeah, this is oops, and that goes. Yeah, so there's sort of this shading. I might have to, sometimes I'll go over it in I'll do it in pen and ink first, and sometimes I'll do it in wash first and then go over it with pen and ink. I haven't really decided in this case how I'm going to do it. He has a lot of there's a lot of this sort of, bless you, husband sneezed. There we go. There's only doing a little bit of this sort of, because there's still eyebrows in here, and there's a lot of line wrinkles. It's a lot of lines in here, and there's lots of lines, lots and lots. Still going with the lines. Also very conscious not to put too much detail in. I'll do it a little bit. Because it's me and I don't like leaving things like half done. What is this? This is 0.05. Basically sketching, and there's a lot. All this is going to be dark, so it probably, what will probably happen is I'll probably pick up my pens and then put my pens away and then pick up my paint and start doing painting, because that's what happens. So all this in here. Also, I don't want to ruin my ink pens, because they're not really designed for sketchy kind of work like that, because I'll ruin the nibs. So I'm going to just, I might go back to the pen and ink on it once I work out the twiddly lines. Guessing at it. I always used to find the beards the hardest. I still do, but I'm having to be careful not to put too much emphasis on it, because I'm trying to get the lines in here, and I will probably go over it with some white for the beardy hairs. They're really tricky. So in here, it's very tricky. Crisscrosses over here like so, but there's also hairs going down this way. Tricky. could zoom in so that you can see more of what I'm actually doing, but I won't do that just yet. Get the form of the shape in the beard and of the chin and all that. You have to put in these little fiddly bits, and it's very, very annoying to do. I hope people aren't bored watching. This is a very slow process, so I'm hoping you're getting something out of it. So for those of you who are watching later and don't know who I am, as you can probably guess from my slideshow under my picture of my webcam, although not the picture that's there at the moment, but I am a portrait artist. I'm first and foremost, I'm an artist, but portraits are my main thing, and I do enjoy doing them. I have a lot of passion. I have a passion for doing portraits. That's why I tend to do more portraits. So you'll see in my about me, my Instagram and things like that, you'll see there's a lot of portrait pictures, and that is because, like I said, I love capturing the expression in people's features, especially in the eyes, and if the more expressive the face, the better. And I get very thrilled by doing sort of faces that are different, and there's always a challenge. So I tend to challenge myself a lot, unintentionally most of the time. Challenge myself by choosing portraits that are going to be difficult. I don't intend them to be, but of course, once I start, I realize that I have actually made it hard for myself, because I've chosen a portrait that is in itself quite a bit of a challenge. Either the person is has a particularly interesting shaped facial feature, which makes it difficult, or they're pulling a face, or they have a lot of beard hair, a lot of facial hair, or they've got really unusual, or it's a weird angle or something like that, or the photo reference is not clear, and that makes it very tricky for me, because there's always challenges in portraits from one way or another. And in some instances, especially with portraits of children, the challenge in itself is the fact that children have such smooth faces. So the younger and more youthful somebody looks.
I haven't brought you any snacks.
Thank you. The harder it is to actually.
Snacks.
The harder it is for people to kind of the harder it is for people to for me to do the portraits, because the skin is smooth, and cross hatching and things like that makes it a bit more tricky, because the skin is smooth. So it's quite an interesting exercise, but I don't mind that, because it gives me something to focus on, rather than doing the same sort of picture. I can look at it as a challenge and go, I wonder how I'm going to do that today. How am I going to do this? How am I going to make this work? How's this going to look? So it is actually always quite interesting to be come across things that are a bit more of a challenge to me, instead of, if it were easy all the time, it probably wouldn't be that interesting. So yeah, it's kind of quite interesting. I find, especially with people with a lot of character lines, like Patrick Stewart here, thank you, they are You know, they do like to, they're more of they're a challenge by themselves, you know. So make it look like the person. I always like to get a good likeness as much as I can anyway. That's always, I always think that if I have managed to capture the likeness of the person, then I've actually done a good job. I've actually managed it. If people can see who it is and know who it is, then I've done it well. And that's my sort of my yardstick for whether or not a picture has worked out or hasn't worked out. Often as not, it can be a bit tricky initially, because sometimes I'll start a picture and I won't know whether I've succeeded, because it's been that much of a challenge that I get a bit lost. I'll look and I'll go, that doesn't look like them yet. There'll be one small feature, something about them which is a specific likeness, and if I've missed it, then I look and go, it doesn't look like that person. But if I manage to capture it, then I go, now if it looks like that person and people recognize who it is, then I know I've done it, and I've done a pretty good job. But it is quite tricky. It is quite difficult, because sometimes, like I said, if I get to a point, there'll be something about someone, it's a specific something about them, which you immediately recognize as the person. Now, if I block off this part, it'll look like Patrick Stewart, because his eyes are quite recognizable. But of course, if I block off this part here, you won't know who it is, because you're not, it's his eyes that capture the personality. So you won't actually get, you won't necessarily know who it is until more details get added. And that's what I mean with the, you know, getting into the point where I've succeeded based on whether it looks like the person it's meant to. So yeah, it's kind of like that, you know. It's sort of can be quite challenging, and depending on what style I'm doing, depends on, you know, how it ends up looking, whether I've got it right or not. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Now, this is going to be tricky, because there are lots of little mustaches are always tricky for me. So yeah, that's looking a bit better already. I was a bit concerned initially, because the shading around the lips wasn't right, and there was no shape to the mouth, but it's coming together, which is good, because yeah, it gets a bit worrying if you kind of like try to, and lips are very, very tricky, especially when they're at an angle like this. So to get the shape is, and make sure you've got it in the right way. That's a bit better. At least the mouth's looking more like a mouth. At a strange angle, it's actually quite tricky. When you've got the mouth 3/4 angle, or people are smiling a lot and there's a lot of teeth showing, mouths are always a challenge. So just gonna, it's a bit better. That looks more like it. It's more of an expression, more of a slight smile, which is good, which is what I wanted. Not kind of like puffy lips, which look, you know, most strange. There's a lot of dark shading in here, but as I said, a lot of this has to be ink wash, or rather the watercolor in here. just to get the shading, and then I could put the lines in. So this is all try not to put too much detail in. Now, have I done the outside of the nose? Let's do the nose. Anybody else who does portraits here, do let me know what part of the features you find the most challenging. That's going to be my question for people. If you do portraits, what part of the portrait do you find the most challenging? That's my question of the day. Because it'll be different for everyone. Some people will find the nose, some people will find the mouth, some people might say, I've actually met many people who actually say the eyes are the most difficult, because everybody seems to be able to do eyes without any dramas, but not other features. So if you're watching and you would like to input, just tell me what what's your experience of it. And if you do portraits, sort of, what do you find the most difficult? What is it that you find the most challenging in doing a portrait? And does it depend on, what part of the portrait you're doing, what angle the portrait's at, who the person is, whether the person is younger or older or something like that. I'd like some feedback. It'd be really, really amazing to find out from people what their experience of it is. Because for me, pretty much the most challenging part of the portrait definitely does depend on what angle, who you're doing a picture of. There's so many variables, and whether they are younger, older, whether you've got a good reference picture, and it's easy to see, or whether it's something like lighting or something like that. Is it easier to draw women or men? Oh, thank you for the question. I find in general it's easier to draw men, which is probably why I do the majority of my pictures of generally celebrities are generally men. I find men easier because they are generally a lot more lines and less smooth, and you can always generally get away with adding the extra lines there, because if you add a bit of extra lines, they just look a little bit more craggy, masculine. Whereas if you you overwork and put too many lines in pictures of women, unless they're older women, it ends up making them look too old, and it doesn't add to the character. It just throws it completely out and just makes it look wrong. So I find that it's easier to draw men, but again, it all depends on who the woman is, what age. But yes, in general, older, just women in general are harder to draw because they have smoother features in general. Older women, if you do too many lines, and it just doesn't do many favors. And with women, it's a lot harder with things like eyebrows and eyelashes and things like that. Lips on women are generally easier than lips on men. For that, it's easier to draw a woman if they have very specific. The lips are easier on the women. Their chins are less strong, which, while it can work against you in some ways, it actually works for you in others. But again, it depends on what angle. But in general, I would say, based on that question, I would say generally it's easier to draw men for me. and other people might find it easier to draw women, but yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with that. But it is a good question. It's shows you've been thinking about. I like it when people ask me questions, actually, because it gives me pause for thought, and I like, thinking about things and why I do things a particular way. And also I like to, I guess it's funny because a guy at work, she said to me, "You only draw pictures of guys you fancy." I said, "No." No. I must admit I am partial to doing celebrity pictures of people that appeal to me, whether that be male or female. Generally it's male, because I find that I'm more drawn to the male actors, because not because they're any better necessarily, but because the roles for men there's just a lot more men that sort of stand out in terms of, for movie roles and celebrity roles and things like that. They're more kind of out there. I think that's what it is. There are a few women, there's a few that I've got to draw. I want to draw Dame Maggie Smith. I want to do Helen Mirren. Hey, Els Castifon, how are you? So nice to see you. So yeah, there are a few women, few actresses I would like to draw. Part of the problem is also, though, with female drawing female actresses and things like that, is that generally everybody, if you've got a main female role, generally the women, generally they've already been drawn a lot by a lot of people, like Jean-Luc Picard. Except in this particular picture, I'm not drawing Picard, although he looks the same in all the pictures, because Patrick Stewart is Patrick Stewart. He's Patrick Stewart whether he plays Picard, Patrick Stewart whether he plays Xavier from the X-Men, Locutus of Borg, whatever. It's still Patrick Stewart, and he is instantly recognizable. So I guess it's kind of, in that respect, you can look at it and go, "Ooh, this is quite a close-up of him. Feels good, man." I like this close-up of him because he's got a very interesting face, and he's a very interesting one to draw, and I wanted to draw him because he has a really interesting face, and there's a lot of character in his face. A lot of Jean-Luc Picard just rolls off the tongue. Yeah, I know it does, doesn't it? Sir Patrick Stewart is his name. Sir Patrick Stewart. Patrick Stewart. Yeah, he's a very good actor, and definitely enjoy watching him in things. But I haven't seen Picard. I keep wanting to. It's on the I think it's Amazon. I think it's Amazon. So yeah, he is. But Jean-Luc Picard does certainly roll off your tongue. That's true. It is easier to say. But no, there's that is the main reason why I wanted to kind of draw him, because I did love the lines and the wrinkles, and this particular reference picture, as you can see all the pores on his face and things. I'm not quite going to get into that degree of detail, but I did want to do this picture. He looks sort of like serious, it's kind of a serious expression, and it's just such a good character study of him. It was actually from People magazine, I think, because the picture that I've picked a kind of sort of this kind of angle it's already been photographed. So in that respect, I'm not doing anything. It's kind of copyright, but the art style isn't. The art style is my own. So I'm trying to kind of, it does have interesting, there's some really interesting lines and things here. And yeah, sort of his neck. The neck is very, this area in here is very dark, but I don't know. Somebody's brought me a coffee, so I'm going to drink it. Let's put that up there for a moment, drink my coffee. Excuse me a moment. It's a very good coffee. It's a very good coffee, thank you. Made by my moderator, my daughter-rater. This Hex Wandep. Ah, very nice. Oh, I am going to, I've got a little squishies. These are raw food balls, so they're not chocolate. Oops. Making a lot of noise though. Okay, look at the other pictures I've done in this style. Right, so normally I'll do the pen and ink wash and then do anything over the top I think needs doing. I'm just going to do this because this is right. There we go. Just give a bit of what's the word? Not perspective. A bit of you know, I hate it when that happens. When you think of words and then they just vanish. Context is the word I was looking for. Oh dear. So yes. But yeah, so I basically the question was, if you do portraits, which part of the portrait do you find the most challenging? And as was asked for me earlier, which was a very good question, do you prefer, you know, are men or women harder to draw? That's a very good question because, yeah. And it all depends on, you know, how you do, you know, like what you're doing with the picture. Like if it's someone playing a role and there's a particular promo picture of them, then it's going to be easier to go off a very clear promo picture than to go off a photograph which is kind of old or you know, out of focus. And that is really, I can't do much more cross-hatching, I mean stippling, as she says, a lot of this sort of stuff, because much of it is meant to be done in ink and wash. But if I can find my number one, there we are. I can put a few of these lines in here. So there's, you know, a bit of drawing in with a pen, but not cross hatching like I usually do. This is kind of just here and there, just to give it a bit of detail. I don't know why, but Patrick Stewart reminded me of Michael Ironside. Maybe it's the look, the lines and things, perhaps. I suppose that's possible. Michael Ironside. I guess it's what you used to, I guess. I guess you would do a little bit. Trying to do some shading without, you know, sort of putting too much detail in. But there's a lot of hair that goes, it's got hairs here. Tricky, very, very tricky. Trying not to sort of maybe I'm already too old to get into the classics that I missed out on. I don't know. I don't think you're ever too old to get into any sort of movies that any of the classics. You just pick them up and you start watching them, and if you think, no, this isn't really for me. So I must admit, some shows are better. You'd understand them more if you're younger, because you sort of go, I don't see the. There's some shows like that now that I sort of look at and I go, yeah, you know, sort of not that I'm too old to necessarily appreciate them, just that kind of sort of, you know, I sort of think, don't know if I'd actually would have enjoyed that when I was younger either. Some of the humour is not really my thing. It never was, or it just isn't now. Tastes change, of course, so, you know, and then you sort of Ironside. I vaguely remember Ironside, like a long time ago. My parents used to, my dad used to watch Ironside, but I didn't really watch it. We didn't have a TV for a lot of time. He was stellar in that movie every critic hates, Highlander 2. Was he like, who's that? Michael Ironside? Patrick Stewart? Patrick Stewart wasn't? Oh, you mean Sean Connery? Oh, Highlander 2. No, he was in the first one, wasn't he? I'm not sure. I've currently lost the thread of the conversation, I think. Never mind. Okay. Do excuse me, I'm munching away. Right, I'm going to move this down. Yes, Sean Connery was also in that. I like Sean Connery. Another actor which I have done, I've done an illustration of him, or part illustration of him, but I will actually do a picture of him from Highlander because I really liked him in that. But I'll do it in the style that I have been doing lately, which was, he was in 1 and 2. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's right. And also Christopher Lambert. He was in Greystoke, Christopher Lambert. And I liked him in that too. And again, I'm kind of a fan. I like Christopher Lambert. He was good in Highlander. Goes there. And I also liked Christopher Lambert in Mortal Kombat, Raiden. I know people slam that too, but, you know, the way I see it is it's, you know, has no depth. And I'm like, well, what do you expect? It was a computer game. I mean, a PlayStation game. Can't expect any depth from that, but it was entertaining. I really enjoyed it. Laughing cold stare, yeah. He's as Raiden, he was brilliant. I really liked him in that. And he's also good in Greystoke. Oh, he's really good in that. So was the other guy, Alexander Skarsgård, or whatever his name was. He was all right in that too, but I much preferred Greystoke, Legend of Tarzan with Christopher Lambert. Still one of my favourites. Let me see. The lines on his forehead have to be kind of, you have to be really careful you don't make them uniform, because they end up looking weird. If you make them uniform, the lines just look robotic. Oh, Mortal Kombat. Forgot he was in that. Oh, yeah. I liked that movie. We saw it at the cinema, and I just really got a lot out of it. I go to watch movies to be entertained, and even if they're really bad, just because it's really just, it's just, I don't know. If I go to see a movie, it's because I'm interested in it, and if it's not, I go, oh well, I don't have high expectations. I don't go with too many expectations. There's quite a few movies where I've gone, not sure I'm going to enjoy that one, and then I go and I'm pleasantly surprised. I'm actually quite thrilled by the fact that some of them totally surprised me. John Wick was one of them. Because with John Wick, I honestly, not the sort of movie that I thought that I would enjoy. Because I'm not really into that. Wait, what movie was Skarsgård in that you mentioned? It was Tarzan. I think it was called, because the one that Lambert was in was Legend of was Greystoke, Legend of Tarzan or something, and I think the one Skarsgård was in was called, I think it was just called Tarzan. I could be wrong. I'm not 100% certain. I have to look it up, but you can look it up. It's he definitely played it. He played with, I think it was, I'm trying to remember the actress. It wasn't Emily Blunt. No, it was someone else. Not sure, but he was pretty good in that. I quite enjoyed that. I think that was set later. It might have been afterwards, after the initial one. I can't remember. I'm not very good at remembering things like that. Sometimes I do, but sometimes I don't. It's worth checking out. So if I don't answer straight away, it's not because I'm ignoring you. One, I'm focused on my picture, and two, there's a 20-second delay. There's always a 20-second delay in the stream, and I don't know if that's the internet or who knows, or whether it's OBS Studio or something like that. But yeah, I did enjoy that one. But John Wick really did. It did surprise me. That one caught me left of center. That one, because that one I wasn't expecting at all to enjoy. Like, oh, yeah, another one of those. I'm not going to enjoy it. Like the Born Identity. Born Identity and James Bond and all those. I thought, oh yeah, kind of going to be another one of those, blah blah, etc etc. But no, I really got into it. Really got into that one. A lot of action, and it's quite violent, but it's actually very violent. But it's interesting, very interesting the way they did it. John Wick, I'm talking about now. So yeah. Now, forehead wrinkles. Forehead, if you would prefer. Oh, that's Skarsgård. Yes, that one. Why, was there another one? Was there another Skarsgård? If it was, I'm not familiar with any others. When I think Skarsgård, I think of the older one, Stellan. Oh, okay. I wasn't even aware there was an older one. I wasn't even familiar with the first one until I saw him in that. And I went, oh, another actor. There you go. Shows how often I watch movies, which is precisely not often enough. He was a main bad guy in that King Arthur movie with Keira Knightley. Oh, right. I've vague recollections of watching that. Vague recollections, and I do mean vague, because I'm usually, once I've seen a movie, I'm usually yeah, it just goes from my mind once I've seen a movie, except for certain movies. I have a favorite movie, and I remember that one really, really well. And the rest of them I watch, and then after I finish watching it, it just goes, okay, watch that. And that's pretty much what happens with my my viewing of movies. So I actually have, he had a giant beard, lol. I'm going to remember not to actually do an illustration of him then. I don't want to do any more giant beards. I've enough troubles with little beards. They're quite amusing. So yeah, they're funny though. What was I saying? Yes, movies. So that's generally what happens with me and movies. I will watch something, and after which time, once I've seen it, it's kind of like, okay, I've watched that, and then my mind goes, you don't need to think about it anymore. So that way, sometimes when I see movies again, it'll take me a short while to kind of be watching. I have to watch it for a bit and then go, hang on a minute. Sometimes it takes me a while to actually get my brain around whether I've seen the movie or not, until there's a bit that becomes familiar and I go, oh no, hang on a minute, I've seen this. Hello, BL for you. Hello, greetings, and how are you? Hello, which Patrick Stewart is this, i.e. what are you referencing him from? So this Patrick Stewart is a reference from People magazine cover. So it's Patrick Stewart as Patrick Stewart, not as any particular character, not as Picard or any of the other characters he's played. Although he does look a little bit like in Logan, you know, the Professor Xavier, the old Professor Xavier. But no, this isn't anything like that. This is purely Patrick Stewart portrait study, and I loved the photograph. So I had to kind of, you know, I kind of had to try referencing it. I wanted to do something with it because it was kind of really, really interesting. I like the angle, and it was good. Just the man himself. Yep, just the man himself. You said it. Just the man himself. By himself, he's quite an interesting character anyway. He's got his character on his face he's just got so much character on his face that, you know, you could just do the picture of him without, you know, ever being bored. He's, yeah, really quite fascinating. So that's why I'm just doing the man himself, but I'm actually doing it as a the study, which is kind of trying to make a slightly back to the style I used to do. Or, you know, can I post a link in here? Please do. Please post a link. I don't have any locks on the link, so if you'd like to post a link, please feel free. More than happy to someone post a link, I should have said, but please, please, please. Yes, you may. Please feel free. You may indeed. So I'm trying to, what I'm doing here is I'm going to have a look at that now. What's the link of? Oh, right. Oh, that's a good picture. Should actually do a picture of that. I really like that. I love the beard. Love the beard. Love the plaits. Really like the plaits. And the wispy hair. I also like the outfit he's wearing. And I might save that. Let me just go file, save as. Can I do it? No. Let me see. I should do a screen grab of that because I really like that picture. A new snipping tool I have, so I'll snip that and save it as a picture. I don't want to use the in-game overlay, thank you very much. Didn't work. Well, that's sad. There we are. Now I can save it, you see. Save the screenshot under miscellaneous. There we go. Awesome. Thank you for that. That is good. I shall close it out of that. All right. Superb. Stellan in King Arthur. Nice. I think I can find a better one of him. If you do, please post a link, because then I don't go looking for it. I probably will go looking for it, but at least then I have. This is what I do. I flick through. If I decide who I'm going to draw, and I go, I'm going to do a picture of Patrick Stewart, for example, and then I'll go looking for a picture of Patrick Stewart. But what I like to do is find pictures that are not, like common everyday pictures that every man and his dog has done. I like to a certain extent, do ones that are sort of slightly, it's out of the ordinary, not out of the ordinary, but not like everybody's seen it kind of thing. And that's why I do this way. And I pick pictures that I think, I really like the way that is. And sometimes, hopefully, there are times when, they're not as common, the pictures, and then that makes them even more special when I come to, do them. Now, I haven't done a lot of, I'm trying not to do too much cross-hatching in here. It will happen because it always does, and I have this tendency to get a bit carried away in my, never, ever, in my, getting things right. But I'm gonna try not to do too much detail. Instead, the rest of it, which I have left in here, I'm going to try, and except for the bits that are, see, there's a lot of shading in here. But what I'm going to do is get some pen and ink. No, this is pen and ink. I keep doing this. I'm going to get some wash, some watercolor, and a paintbrush, and I'm going to leave this pens over here. So what I will do is the wash on it, if I can find. There's a little and some water. Nice, a lot of water over here. Pop it over here, and a paintbrush. Choose a paintbrush from my range of many paintbrushes. Which one do I want to use for what I need to do? Probably just do a generic largish paintbrush, or one about no, large paintbrush. I haven't used quite a few of these paintbrushes, so I have my favorites and then I stop using the others. So I continually alternate between my favorites. Could be a favorite, possibly. Might be a bit thick. There's many that are very similar, and I also like, filberts and rounds and flat brushes and things like that. So most likely we'll use this one, and most likely we'll use this one, and possibly a thinner one. I haven't really decided. My paintbrushes over there. This one. Right. Okay, so I'll just move those out of the way. And black paint and a paper towel. All right. So this is just a very basic, I haven't done a lot of detail on this. I'll zoom out a bit. So you can see that so far it's only pen and ink and a very, very light pen and ink. So I haven't done my cross hatching. If I zoom in, you can see what I mean. So basically, as you can see, just tap that to see if I can get it. Oops. Focus. No, that's as sharp as it's going to get. So instead of my usual cross hatching with specific straight lines, this time I've just chosen to do a few little lines here and there. So just to show where some of the tones are going to go. I haven't put in lots of lines, like I haven't put in shapes. With my other style, what I do is I actually would say, make this a shape, and then I just do a single line. What I'm doing is doing free form lines and cross hatching in places, just here and there, just to show where they go, and then zoom out. So when I come to do the ink wash, which is what I'm about to do, I can, this one's quite interesting because it has a lot of very interesting tonal variations in it. Some are quite dark and some are not. Not sure yet what paintbrushes I'm going to use. I'm hoping if I have a piece of paper, just going to move this out of the way, move things out of the way. So I've got room. I have a piece of paper that I test my colours on, and so I need access to that. Over here. Okay, so here we go. Now this one will be available as a print when I'm finished, as will all my other pictures that I do, and I will put them most likely, so yeah, I'll put them onto Ko-fi and Instagram and things like that. If there's a particular picture that you're looking through my Instagram, and you're more than welcome to check them both out. So I have two Instagrams. One is Harmony1965_Doris, and the other one is Nostalgia Art Portraits. Now the Nostalgia Art Portraits is specifically any of the nostalgic things that I grew up with. So, oh, there's a helicopter going overhead. It's very, very loud. Everything's shaking. So the nostalgic portraits are things like nostalgic to me, memories and things like that of when I was growing up. So any celebrities, actors, musicians, etc., around the time that I was growing up, or even from before my time, and movies from before my time, anything old-timey, retro, that kind of thing, will go into Nostalgia Art Portraits. So any portraits I do which are old school, not necessarily too old, but also not too modern either. Movies I grew up with, movies I have fond memories of, TV shows that I grew up with, that I remember watching when I was a teenager or younger. There are shows and any old photographs. So photograph of my parents when they were younger, a wedding photo, which I'm still working on. I haven't gone back to it yet. I can't bring myself to do it yet. It's still too raw. So I haven't gone back to that one yet, but I shall go back to that. So that'll end up on my Nostalgic Art Portraits. So, you know, if you have a look at, if you check my About Me, you'll be able to see the link to that. So you can see what I mean by the type of nostalgic portraits that I do, TV shows and things like that, and actors. I haven't done too many of those because I only just started that particular Instagram. But if you have any requests, or if you'd like to commission me to do any old school portraits or anything at all, I also have a Ko-fi. So down the bottom here, so down the bottom there, under my slideshow. You can see my Ko-fi and you can commission me to do pictures for you. Or you can have a look through my store. I'm setting up tiers at the moment, membership tiers. So when that's active, I will let people know. All sorts of goodies from us being a member. I'm still working on those. And so, yes, and you'll also get to see my works in progress and be able to make art requests and things like that. So there you are. And the Harmony 1965 Instagram is my Instagram for all the other portraits and other sort of work that I've done, not just portraits, but all media, including, there's a bit of cosplay in there. There's some pictures of general artworks. There are, I've got a vehicle, not just other art techniques like, not just pen and ink and watercolor wash, which is my favorite, but also, pastels, color pencils, acrylic, and, graphite and that sort of thing. But at the moment, my favorite is by far pen and ink and watercolor. And the two in combination is for me the ultimate. So even though this is predominantly pen and ink, there will be a watercolor wash over the top. Now I could do ink wash, meaning I could use a Indian ink and do a grayscale wash over the top, but I'm not doing that in this case. I usually leave that for my other arts, pen and ink art style. Instead, I'm going to be putting watercolor over it because I have more control. So it's really a pen and ink watercolor wash grayscale with just a splash of color, which I might add later. But these are the paints that I use. So watercolor paints, this one's Dr. P.H. Martin's Hydrus, and these are liquid watercolor paints, and they are an absolute delight to use. Lots of fun, very vibrant. They're pigment based, they're concentrated. You can dilute them right down and they retain the color really well. There's no granulation or anything like that. It's great. So in this case, I'm using the black, carbon black, to create the grayscales here on the face, which I shall be doing shortly. And that way I've got more control over it. And then I may put some white, and the white that I use this on all my pictures. So when I want to put highlights or I've made a mistake in the ink and things like that, I'll shake it up. So again, Dr. P.H. Martin's pen white. Now this is the best white that I have ever found so far for any of my sort of paintings. Now obviously if I'm doing acrylic, then I'll use white acrylic, so that doesn't come into it. But if I'm working on, and it doesn't with graphite either, because you can just rub out lines, but when I'm doing pen and ink or I'm doing watercolor and I'm looking for a white that's really opaque, and this one here is really good for blocking out lines, mistakes and things like that, but it's also really, really good for going back in with watercolor and adding the lines in. So adding fine lines and details. You can also add blocks color. It is waterproof. It's not waterproof, so it's it will dilute with water, which means that you can dilute it right down. You can add it to your paints, watercolor paints, and make them more like gouache, so they have more of a, sort of opaque kind of translucent but not transparent. It changes the consistency of the watercolor, stops making it so transparent. So in that respect, it's kind of, you got to be a bit careful, but it is really good for adding highlights and things like that, and blending and things like that. You can dilute it and put it in airbrushes and pens and things like that. So I found this is the best one so far. Nothing shows through and it's really, really good. So anyway, I'm going to get my paint started. I have a paper towel, I have some water, I have a palette, and I tend to use ceramic palettes for my mixing because, one, they don't stain. Plastic palettes are all very well for, if you want throwaway palettes, and you can get them really, really cheap. You can get a stack of plastic palettes and then, you know, you can just throw them away when you're done, if you choose to. Or you can do what I do and actually use a ceramic palette. And I like the ceramic palettes, the white ones, because you can see the colour really well on it. You know kind of how the concentrated colour's going to look. And also you have, it doesn't stain. It's just lovely. It's smooth, doesn't catch on the plastic. And certain colours will actually stain the plastic. And blue and red are the two that tend to do that the most. So I'm just going to see how detailed how diluted I got with my other ones. So that's actually quite dark. So on different degrees of, so just in here, there's actually a, this is dark in here. So to begin with, I'm just going to put some of this down here. I'm not going to make the paper too wet because it will actually buckle, and I don't like it doing that. It's actually darker. So, yep, that's nice and pale. So there is a darker, there are darker areas in here. So I will be putting that in, and in here. So this is where I was trying not to put too much line work, because the tones that I'm putting in now are sort of, I can add extra tones to it, but I don't want to do it all in pen and ink. I'd like to do it just in watercolor wash. So putting them in is tricky. At the moment I'm just using a very diluted black, but this whole lot here I'm skimming through the King Arthur movie. Oh, okay, cool. I'm going to I can go over this in darker and darker till I get the shading right. If I choose to. Or I could leave it as light as I like. So here it's a bit darker. I'm trying not to use colour too dark because I can't dilute it really once it's on. And to a certain extent, but then you've got to shift it around while it's still wet. Just going to add a bit of colour in here. So you can see already, even just this little bit, how it makes a difference to the shading and the feel of the mood or the tone of the picture without having to do too much. And this is the reason I don't use an ink here, because I can't go back in and feather out the lines. It just dries and then you're left with blotches of colour. And I might switch to a different brush because this one is just a little bit too big. Although she says this, and then I may use a filbert. So this is a filbert here. It's a rounded, it's a flat brush, but it's rounded on the ends. There is something problematic, and that's the colour tone of the movie. It's very dark, so it's hard to get a good view of Stellan with good details of him. And most of the shots are of him up close, cutting off his beard. And when he's further away, there's not that much focus on him, so he's kind of blurry and dark. Yeah, this is my point. It's really hard to find good references. And I did this with Good Omens. I actually had stopped the video at times to kind of go, oh, I like that, and did a screen grab. And then, of course, you had the problem where, you know, if you stop it at the wrong point, you don't end up with any kind of detail. It's blurry or whatever. So yes, I know how you feel. I know what you mean. This is what I'm trying to do in here. Put this shadow in, and I can go over some bits with white. But I like building up the tone because I don't like to have it too dark, sort of too quickly. Like, there is definitely tone in here. But I've got to be careful how I do it, because there's bits that are darker and bits that are lighter. And I don't want to ruin it. I can go over it a couple of times and you know, create the tone, but if you put it in wrong, it's really hard to remove it. Well, it's practically impossible to remove it if you put it in wrong. And this is the same as what I do with my other style. I'm always really cautious to put in a few, rather go a bit light-handed rather than making it too dark. Otherwise, you know, you end up with problems. And it's not always the right paintbrush, so you have to keep switching. I keep switching between paintbrushes. If I look at something and I go, don't like the way that's turning out, I'll then, you know, I'll then grab a different paintbrush and make it either lighter or darker. In this particular case, I can go a bit darker in here. Probably will. Goes darker in here. I do like working pen and ink. You can do so much with it. And it's fun. Now he's wearing a shirt, so I'm going to put this in here. It's very, you've got to be very, very, very subtle. Best shot of him so far, directly from the movie. Right, I'll check that out later. Can't check it out right at this moment because I'm in the middle of painting. When I'm painting, I tend not to stop while I have a wet paintbrush, because it's really difficult. check that link out in a moment, but yeah, I just want to get this done. This is quite delicate. So I like the ink and wash because, or in this case, the watercolor and wash, because it gives it depth. So rather than, you know, just having a flat illustration, you end up with a sort of a three-dimensional kind of effect. We'll make parts of it darker because it needs to be. Gonna get a bit more. Now, there are areas you have to go back up into, because there's different, and I will put the white in some of these because the beard has to kind of look right, but actually quite hard. That. Something like that. I'm going to zoom in on his face somewhat. Give me a moment. So, the details. All right, let me just have a look at that image. You're right about it being dark, aren't you? The lighting and things like that are actually quite green and dark. Bluishy green. It's an interesting, very interesting way of, let me just save that. Come on, I want to save it. There we are. I'll look at those later. Okay. All right. Thank you for that. All righty. Back to my picture. So because this is watercolor, I can dilute it. And I do sometimes, because if I think something's getting a bit dark, I'll dilute it. In this particular case, there's, you know, beardy hairs. And the beard doesn't have to be super accurate, but she says, it helps if it's kind of looks, you know, correct. Doesn't look correct, then we've got a problem. Then it isn't convincing as a beard. And that's the problem I have. So course, he's got lots of lines, even on his neck. So I can put them in with a paintbrush. But what I'm trying to do here is get the tone in here. Because you put some white lines in here. There's actually a line that goes under here and then down. If I can put the tone in underneath and then paint, put ink and paint the white over the top of it again and get it back that way. Put the tonal variation in here. Probably in here. And it doesn't, like I said, it doesn't have to be super accurate. It just has to look like there's a chin under there. So I've got to kind of put the shading in. This bit here is all dark. And I can remove certain parts of it afterwards. Probably the same up here. I don't want to make it too dark, but I do want to make it look accurate. And here, so I hope everybody's having a lovely day. I'm really enjoying doing this picture of Jean-Luc Picard, except it's not Picard in this picture. It's a study of Patrick Stewart, Sir Patrick Stewart, who's actually a very interesting character study. He has a very interesting face, a lot of lines and things, and I do like interesting faces. And at the moment, I'm just trying to get some of this tonal area in. Try and get that so it'll be darker in here. It's actually quite dark in there. That's where his beard is. The shape of the jaw. I'm trying to get the shape of the jaw in. So it will be put in the shadows first and then put in the lighter tones afterwards. I can do that because it's a watercolor, so I can add it in and remove them later. So in here it's lighter, darker rather. In here there's an actual darker area. In here there's a interesting, this bit. And these are just fiddly details, but it makes all the difference when you come to draw them. It makes it look more realistic and it's more believable. But the shading is important, so you have to make sure that you don't shadow the wrong parts in the wrong way. There we go, his ear. There we go. It's not generally not white. None of the paper is actually white. I don't like the white of the paper showing through. So that's his ear. Ears are fun. So fun. Okay, now this area here is actually a lot darker than it needs to be. And remove that. Building up the tone here. To zoom out so you can see the picture so far. There we go. And then in here, getting there. So there is a bit that goes here. Hey, Hayden 98. Hayden 98, how are you? So nice to see you on my stream. Hope you're having a good day. How's your Sunday been? Has it been good? I hope so. I'm having a very good day. Good stream. Good afternoon. Good. What have you been up to today? What have you been up to on this lovely Sunday? Been very hot. It has been very hot, hasn't it? I had a very warm day today. I know you're probably hotter where you are because you got the more humid weather, um, but here it's been very warm too. Had some very muggy weather actually lately. Not a big fan of the muggy weather, I've got to say. But you know, you make do. It's not like you can do anything about it, but I've been indoors and in spite of that, still very warm. And I've got the aircon on. And behind me as well. But what have you been up to in spite of the hot weather? Have you been doing anything interesting? Or anything? Doesn't have to be interesting, but as long as you've had a good day, you've had a good afternoon. Let's see, this is kind of... I'm having fun with this picture. Starting to look a bit more like Patrick Stewart here. It's got a sort of a pensive kind of expression. It's slightly pensive. Just bowling. Yeah, well, that would make you hot. Definitely make you hot, bowling. That would make you warm, rather warm. Hard enough just sort of, you know, not doing any physical exercise and just sitting trying to stay cool. But, you know, it's what it is. The weather is the way it is. All right, let's just get this darker area here. A little bit darker under there, of course, and then this bit in here. Bowling is too hot in the afternoon for bowling. But this comes the fun part. This is going to be all dark in here. And in here, here, Stewart, not being Jean-Luc Picard here, but just Sir Patrick Stewart.